Grab your cocktail and get ready for this episode of the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast.
Welcome to the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast, where we talk all things Freemasons while drinking an old fashioned. I'm Brian, and guess what we have? No Texan, no Kansan, no Californian, no Floridan, but we got us a New Yorker on the podcast. Isaac Moore, welcome, my friend.
Glad to be here, my brother. It's a freezing night in the Bronx.
All right. Well, that sounds terrible.
It's like 18 degrees outside. It's terrible.
So we crossed paths through social media, and folks said, you need to talk to this guy, and so we linked up. So, have you seen an episode of the podcast before?
Not until recently.
Okay.
And maybe the past 5 or 6 months or so.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
nice. Well, what we do on the podcast, we like to know as much about the man as we do the Masons. So I'm going to give you this spotlight. Push Masonry to the side, my friend. Right. Tell the world who Isaac is.
A guy from the Bronx. My father passed away when I was before I was even a month old. And my mother met a guy in the 70s. I was born in Colorado Springs. And the guy was a big union leader from New York City and 30 years older than my mother. He was substantially older than my mom. And we moved to New York in the 70s. They said, hey, when's the best time we can move to New York City is when the Bronx is on fire. Like the worst time to move to New York City is when we moved here. Yeah. And, I grew up in the Bronx in Co-op City, which is the world's largest, or at least at the time, it was the world's largest housing. It's not a project, I would say a community, because it's, middle-class Bronx people, blue-collar neighborhood, blue to middle class. So it's, the history of the Bronx is the new immigrants come here and they kind of start out in the South Bronx and they work up as, the generations come through, right? So you have the new wave of immigrants, and then they do a little better, and the dad will be a bus driver, the mom's a nurse. So they'll move up to Co-op City, right? And then their kids are the ones who go to college, and it's been going on that way for 80 years.
Nice.
And so we moved to the Bronx, and I was going into first grade, and I grew up here, and public school in New York City. I went to Cooper Union for the advancement of science and art down in the East Village. My sister went there as well. I studied painting. Like an idiot. I'm a fantastic artist, but I wanted healthcare. So I was making I used to make handmade wallpaper in Soho with a company called Elizabeth Dow. We'd make, in the 90s, it was selling for like $300 a yard back in the 90s.
Wow.
To the trade. That's not to the end user. And then I went and worked for Ralph Lauren corporate for a while, and doing logistics and customs, procurement. And I kind of fell ass backwards into that, to support art, my artwork and so forth, and have health insurance. I worked for a company called American Christmas, and we did, which still exists, but a bunch of us got laid off a while ago. They do all of the giant Christmas displays in New York City, so like Saks, Rockefeller Center, and all of that. And my job was procurement. So I'd have to purchase globally and domestically and blah, blah, blah within budget. It was a cool job. This time of year for several years was terrible. From October to early December when we work in the Christmas business is brutal. And, after COVID and all that, I kind of backed away from not masonry, but going to lodge, just 7-year-old kid and blah, blah, blah. And here we are. And I'm kind of getting back into the swing of things with my lodge.
Nice. Okay. So before we get into masonry, kind of touch that. Personally, tell me about your run for New York City Mayor. Walk me through that.
It's never an official thing. It's me being a smartass. My personal leanings tend to be very New York City oriented. No value judgment to anybody. Your beliefs are your beliefs, and your political leanings are yours. As long as we're all civil, whatever. I really don't care as long as there's civility.
Yep.
that's a personal thing that I have to work on too, because I get worked up as well, and I really try to put a clamp on that. But running for New York City mayor is just me being, sarcastic and me being kind of like a jerk. And we created a fake political party called the Dodo Party. We support the freaking weirdo agenda, like the artists and musicians and the weird people of New York City, man. It's I don't know if you've been here.
I have,
but yes, what I'm talking about. It's a unique place that we all love and support and complain about.
I love it. Well, I had to hit that because as we're doing some research, I'm like, holy hell!
Did you see that we invade Marble Hill every year?
Oh, I saw you holding the flag and everything. Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
That little northern tip of Manhattan is in the Bronx, because there's a canal, right? Mm-hmm. And that canal, there used to be the Bronx, like the river would come down, but they dug it out in like the early 1800s. So in the very end of the Bronx, there's a neighborhood called Marble Hill, and it's part of Manhattan. And this is actually a Masonic conspiracy, because me and another brother started this again. So our borough president in like 39, this guy James Lyons, he and his chauffeur got really drunk. They went to Marble Hill and they invaded it, and everybody booed them. And so Brother Angel Hernandez and I wanted to do this again. So every year for Bronx Week, we do this. And every year the people in Manhattan hate us more and more. We usually get like a whole string of like profanity. And like the worse it is, the more we're like, yay!
Yeah.
We get backed by the borough president. So that is a straight up Masonic conspiracy that Brother Angel Hernandez and I invade Marble Hill every year.
I love it. the invasion. So walk us through your Masonic journey from the beginning and where you're at now. And I've got notes in case you forget some things. So go along, my friend.
I'll tell you how. I'd heard about Masonry around the periphery of life, like everyone. And this was, before the internet. I'm 52, and so this is like the 90s. And I was a freshman in college in 92. And a brother of mine, I'm now a brother of him, he was a Mason from Miami originally, he and his brother. And his name is Juan Gutierrez. And he went to Cooper Union as well. And I was curious about it, and I asked him, what the process is and all of that, and how he got involved in it. And his father, in the 80s, during the Nicaraguan Civil War, his family was like in the middle of all of this. I forget the name of the town, but they were in the middle of the battles. So some random Florida Masons reached out to Brother Gutierrez and helped them get to Miami and get them out of all that. He's like, get your boys out of there. Come to Miami. I can probably get you like not a great job, but your family will be alive. And so that's how Brother Juan and his brother Noel came to America through the help of a Mason. And I'm like, oh, yes, these are the people. Like, yes, this is what I want to be involved with. These are the people that make sense to me.
Yeah.
So then, bachelor single, messing around in Manhattan, and I was kind of listless, and finally pulled the trigger, and I joined a lodge called Franklin 447. Wasn't really a good fit. I probably should not have gone into that lodge to begin with, because I don't think there wasn't enough follow through on their end. They were going through weird transition.
Just a bad fit. Just a bad fit.
And Franklin has really, they're still around. They're amazingly proficient now. I wouldn't say they were falling apart, but the old timers are dying out, and they were through a transition phase.
But lodges ebbs and flow. They ebb and flow like that. It'll come through, and I don't think it's unfair.
And they're doing great now, and they're fantastic now. But Mariners was definitely felt more like home.
Yeah.
I'm a painter and an artist, and Mariners Lodge has opera singers and creative types, and like unique New Yorkers.
Right. Oh,
Right?
it's the true melting pot. Because I'm kind of reading through. What you put together is absolutely great, and there's a couple of things that you pointed out. And this is not a knock because lodges do this, but you really felt like Mariners Lodge number 67 really focused on the quality over quantity.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they were rebuilding. Speaking of lodges that were falling apart, I
Right.
came into it. Maybe 12 brothers would be a lodge, and we would go down to a restaurant down the street called Live Bait. We had a great time. We'd have drinks and talk, and you know, Brother Alessandro Gagliardi, Brother Sam Kinsey, worshipful. I guess I don't know if he's I think very worshipful now. They really had uh, an idea in their mind, like a couple years planned down the road. And they were basing it on ritual work, basing it on sweat equity,
Mm-hmm.
um, quality over quantity, um, a lot of esoteric work and knowledge, a lot of work put in by the entered apprentices and fellow crafts, and it was refreshing to come into that. Like you couldn't just walk in; you had to work for it.
So let me point out some things here,
Yeah,
if I may, because you talked about the sweat equity, and here's some things that I felt was really fascinating. And so you talked about, if you're going to join the lodge,
yeah,
um, they've got to attend a minimum of 6 to 8 months of your monthly festive boards before
correct,
they're even handed a petition.
correct.
Right? Love that because I can tell you I've been on both sides of it where when I was a membership chairman, you're pumping numbers and then you wonder why that retention's not there because you really haven't properly vetted them, right? And in the city where I live, in our MSA in Wichita, we have 8 or 9 lodges, right? And it's crazy. And our lodge at one time was one of the largest in the world. We had almost 8,000 members in our lodge.
Wow.
So, but you start pumping it through. Here's the other thing that I found really interesting. Once you do it, then there's the interview and a home visit, which what we do. Once they're a brother, and this is what I underline, they're still required to participate.
Oh yes.
And see, that was, and
Yeah.
every brother must read
Huge.
a paper that he writes in open lodge.
Correct. And the papers are usually based upon the like whatever ritual that they just perceived, whatever. I mean, it's never anything that's really. It doesn't have to be a doctoral quality
No,
paper.
it's just their takeaway without breaking their obligation.
Correct.
And let me tell you what I thought was interesting about this, Isaac, is this. We can get out and just talk about, oh, this is what happened, this was cool, this is why I liked it. But when you have to sit down and write it and then you stop, it makes you really think about it. And it cuts both ways to me. For me, when I write or type right? But it makes you sit there and say, wow, I kind of forgot about that. And I can appreciate it or find out what I didn't like and say, hey, this was all cool. I didn't like this. And maybe I didn't like it because I didn't understand this. But writing it down to me, I thought is just brilliant.
And
Uh,
the thing that I think is also when you're there and you're seeing a fellow craft paper or an entered apprentice paper, we come from all walks of life.
yep.
And there are guys who are salesmen who come in and they're slick and they deliver it. And
Yeah.
then you have a really socially awkward nerdy guy who and I think I kind of prefer those guys because you see your brother getting up there who is not comfortable doing that, putting himself out there. And this is critical for us who've been in the craft for a while. It is critical at that moment when that brother makes himself vulnerable to support him.
Yep.
The slick brother, got it, brother. Your salesman, got it. You're going to be fine.
They're still in their wheelhouse.
Yes, we are building men of character. So that brother needs you to say, I listened to what you said, and I thought this was, this is what I agree with, or disagree or agree with, or whatever. Just, I heard you, brother. And that is awesome. And I know that you took a chance on us, and you
Yep.
did it. And, that brother is going to take that out into the world
Yep.
Right.
Well, the other side to that is you find out what's important to them.
There you go.
And then you can accentuate that.
There you go.
Right. And that's the true, our mantra, we make good men better. And I always say, how? This right here has been the closest thing that I've seen. How, the essence of how is right. You keep good men around you and you don't do knucklehead things, right? But when somebody makes themselves vulnerable and then they're being heard, forget masonry, just in relationships, people want to be heard. And when they're vulnerable, they want to know that somebody's there.
Yeah.
And when I read this, I have so many highlights. I became such an active participant in what you wrote that I felt like I was there.
Awesome.
And so I wanted you to say this. I thought this was the coolest thing ever, but you took the time to write it out and it brought me into it. It really sucked me in versus just two dudes talking about it, because you can lollygag around and kind of forget something. But when you've got to read it, and I'm an active reader, it changes everything from my
By the way, I hope my writing wasn't ridiculous and it makes sense. And
listen, it was great. It was there's no question marks.
I went to art school, man. Yeah.
No, it was great. So, but I wanted to acknowledge that the way that you guys are doing, obviously it seems to work. And I didn't really think about the vulnerability until you pointed it out. But what a cool ass thing that you guys do.
And by the way, once again, I got to give credit to the brothers of Mariners. I came into it. I'm like the second banana guy, right? I came in after these brothers really started rebuilding it. I'm like the first new generation in the Mariners after restructuring.
Yeah.
So there's our lifelong secretary, Worshipful Leon Calafiore, who's going to be our secretary until he croaks.
Yeah.
Sam Kinsey, Alessandro Gagliardi, Bill Gibbons, all these brothers, they're the ones who really hold it together. And I just came along, I got a big mouth and I can.
Hey, you found your role though, right?
You can cheerlead, right? I can get butts and seats.
Yeah. And that's important. So as we kind of go, you were master in 2012, but I want to talk about this.
I think it was 2012. I kind of have a personal philosophy where that kind of shit doesn't matter. Like I don't care about my year. That was the year I was there. I think brothers get too caught up in that. Yeah,
that's fair. So let's talk about something cool.
Yeah.
Every year you guys do this giant beefsteak dinner in the Grand Lodge room on 23rd.
It comes and goes. Some years, for the most part, yes.
Okay.
COVID kind of put the kibosh on a lot of that.
Yeah. So what's your record attendance you've had there?
I'd have to ask Sam the exact number, but I'm going to say like 500.
That's
Grand Lodge
crazy.
Room. And it's brothers from all over the world.
I mean, absolutely love it. Love it. And in 2025, this will be a 200-year anniversary, right?
Oh, we're coming. Yeah, this is our bicentennial. And Mariners, it was founded by sailors in 1825, and it was under the City Grand Lodge of New York. And we are the only existing lodge that was chartered by the City Grand Lodge of New York. All of the others have gone. So when the Grand Lodge of the state of New York was founded, they invited us to join, along with St. John's #1 and Independent Royal Arch #2, Holland Lodge #8. So we're in the first Manhattan district, and we jokingly call it the Musty First. And these are old lodges. They're founded in like the mid early 1700s that are still very much in existence.
Right.
Our structure was built on sailors, right? So if you go out to sea for 3 years, how are you going to pay your dues, right? So they had a crazy system for dues. We even had a brother who died at sea, whose dues. And this is it. You can see it in our minutes. A brother showed up to lodge. Well, he was dead. He was brought to lodge in a barrel. They pickled him. He's at sea, so they pickled the guy. They bring him to lodge, and his dues were not up to date, and the secretary turned him away. That's in our minutes.
Death and taxes and dues.
And we also had our first worshipful master. His name was George Arnold. And you could tell they met in a tavern downtown or something. And it was right when tricorners went out of fashion. So they all had new hats. So they all got really drunk and they went to lodge. And the entire lodge voted unanimously on this, that for our Tyler to be paid, he has to wear the master's old hat, which would be a tricorn at the time. So they got really drunk, and apparently he was a really grumpy guy. They invited the brother into they're like, look, brother, if you want to get paid, you have to wear the master's old hat as your job. And he did not like it, but he did it to get paid. And we don't follow that rule anymore, but we never took it off the book. So technically, our Tyler's supposed to wear a crappy old master's hat.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So after the Blue Lodge, where'd you go? Did you go Scottish Rite? You go Shrine? Where'd you go next?
I did Shrine and I did Scottish Rite. And once again, I met a lot of great brothers in Scottish Rite, New York Valley. Brother John, worshipful John Roberts, who's the current master of St. John's No. 1. And I just saw him swear his oath on the Washington Bible. Oh, wow. A couple months back. He owns Bushwick Country Club in Brooklyn. Steve Baker, our Grand Chaplain, Fahimul Islam. He's the first Muslim Grand Chaplain in the state of New York. Met him. There's the whole crew of guys I still run with that I met in Scottish Rite.
I love it.
Grand Lodge in New York and the lodges at the time were kind of going through, like Franklin Lodge, going through changes.
Yeah.
At the time, I was not really into the management style of the people running our valley, so I kind of just walked away from it. I did my 32nd. I think I only had a couple of degrees still missing. But now Brother Michael Lifshitz, I believe, is running it, and he's fantastic, and I'm going to pursue that. And I got really involved. I'm in a Mecca Shrine No. 1.
Yeah.
And still very much in existence. 1872, I think we were founded. In New York City on 6th Avenue, just 2 or 3 blocks.
Yeah. You've got a lot of players besides the two founders. You've got Houdini came out of there. You've got
if you search on Facebook Harry Houdini's petition, we have Houdini's petition. And it says he's like a mystic and an author. And it has, the black camel on it. And you can just, hey, there's Houdini's thing. And he's buried in Queens. We used to go visit his grave all the time.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
We had, we had a bunch of famous people. I think Buffalo Bill was an honorary member. Or Wild Bill Cody.
Yeah. Yeah, because he came there to do a lot of his shows.
Yes. And in fact, there was a degree at the Old Madison Square Garden where they put a noble on like a bucking bronco or a donkey and blindfolded him, and they said that was the ritual for him to join Mecca Shrine.
Oh no!
I gotta find that out somewhere. I mean, it's written down somewhere.
Oh
and it's
my
like in the news.
That would be a problem with the anti-hazing laws today.
So the Florence and Fleming, a former noble that I've severed my friendship with him. He went down the wrong path and he got thrown out of the craft. But we started the Florence Day thing, and the first Florence Day we went to his grave. We laid flowers. He's in Brooklyn, and over the years we built it up to have big Florence banquets where the imperial potentate would show up, and we would go to the Players Club, which is like a gentleman's club in the old sense, not like a strip club, but like the tufted chairs.
Right.
It was for actors.
Yeah,
and it was Edwin Booth's house. And when you walk in there, on the first floor, you see the founders of the Players Club, and like all of them are Shriners. So you have Florence, you have Fleming, you have all these guys, and they're totally separate from the Shrine, but they're players. And in the bedroom, when Edwin Booth, who was John Wilkes Booth's brother, who was a Unionist, they left his room the same when he died. And in that room, it's like the 1870s or whatever when he died. And in his bedroom, there is a skull, a human skull, with the scimitar from the Shrine on it.
No kidding.
in everyone's room, and because all the shrine guys hung out there, and that is the only photograph on public display of John Wilkes Booth in the Yankee Stadium. It's a little tiny square. It's like a daguerreotype.
Yeah.
Edwin Booth's bed, and that's where all the Shriners used to hang out. So we used to have big. After the Florence Day, we'd go there with the Imperial Potentate. And I was very involved with Mecca Shrine for a long time. And then I got married, had a kid, so
Yeah.
step back.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Life gets in the way, you know.
And then that brought us to the Grotto.
Exactly. That's my next question. Now you're in the Grotto. Walk us through this.
Azim Grotto 7 is the oldest surviving grotto, I believe. I know there's Mokana, but I think the Supreme Council is technically Mokana Grotto. And Azim 7 from the Bronx is, I think, technically the oldest operating grotto still. But it was about to not be.
Right.
And there is a brother called Leon Weinstein from Co-op City, where I'm from, and he is in his mid to late 90s. And he had been paying the per capita out of pocket. Nobody knew this. He did this for like 20 years. He only thought there were like 3 or 4 guys in Azim, and he just didn't want to see an old thing collapse.
Right.
He's paying like $20 a year or whatever just to keep it going. And so he comes up to me, and now past Imperial Monarch Victor Mann, and he's like, "Oh, I got to give this up. You know, I'm old. Nobody wants to do this anymore." And Victor, like, "Whoa, whoa, no, we're not giving that up." We were sick of the politics that were going on in the shrine. We weren't doing anything nefariously, but like, I'm not here for the politics, man. I'm here to hang out with my brothers, and we were doing the original shrine degree, which is bananas. I'll try to see if I have a copy of it and send it to you. Like, there's things with a 3-pointed knife. It's crazy. Okay. Slicing your feet, it's nuts. The first shrine ritual. So that's the stuff we loved. And then they started getting into politics, and they're arguing money and taking themselves so seriously. But fine, I'm cool with seriousness, and I love the Shrine's mission, love the Shrine's hospitals. But my Blue Lodge is serious, right? Like, I'm not doing anything crazy in the Shrine, but lighten up, guys, brothers, right. Please. So we saw, hey, me and Victor and Levent and Fa and all the guys that I'm really good friends with, like, we can have our own club, man. This brother's he's gonna retire this. No way we're gonna let this guy give up this charter, because Azim was founded in like 1890 or something like that. We're not gonna let you do that, brother. So you are never gonna pay another dime in dues to the Grotto ever again. Just show up, Leon. You're past monarch.
You did your job.
Yeah. You're the guy. You're our hero, man. So when we first started, we were meeting brother Rick Addison. He's a prophet. He owns a couple bars, like hotel bars in Manhattan. And he had a place in like the 40s, like off Times Square. He had like a rooftop gazebo kind of like a what do you call it? Like a greenhouse kind of thing, but like a bar in there. It was like, you brothers, if you just buy drinks from me, you can use that for free. So for years, we were just meeting. There was like 10 of us meeting at Rick Addison's bar, and it was great. And we were like, we didn't really tell anybody, but we didn't want anybody. We had our own little club, man. Just right. It was great. And we did the ritual terribly, horribly. But it was just fun. It was, the brothers I hang out with in the lodge and Scottish Rite. And here's a place where we could come together and just have fun and be brothers and have an old-timey thing and learn the ritual with no pressure. There wasn't a guy there saying, back in 1978, we did it this way, and now it sucks. Right. Yeah, none of it. It was like a fresh start.
Right.
And we loved it. That was some of the best times I've ever had with my brothers. And over time, people saw us having fun, right? Brothers saw us being lighthearted, right? Not being dour, not being down, not, I take masonry, my masonry, very seriously, but with joy, Right? I'm serious about joy and love and my friends. And so brothers were longing for that. You know, I don't come to lodge. You know, this is a volunteer organization, man. I'm not going there to get yelled at about, you know, green beans, man. I'm there to learn and grow and meet weird, cool people from around the world. I don't need some guy telling me how great it used to be when we're here now.
Yep.
And Azim caught on like fire. It really did. And, you know, I even think it kind of angered guys from the Shrine a little bit. We're like, look, man, I'm still a Meccan. I still love Mecca. It's peas and carrots, man. It's a different thing. You should be thrilled that brothers want to go to a Masonic function. You should be thrilled by this.
Yep.
And then it grew and grew, man. And, you know, the more brothers we got in that came into Azim, we became friends with the brothers out from Ubar Grotto. Really good friends with those guys. We were very tight with them. We're still tight with them, but the Grotto's become a big, serious monster now. When we started, it was dying. And, you know, Azim Grotto, I genuinely think Azim Grotto really brought it back.
They were the catalyst.
Yeah. And Victor Mann coming into this, that guy, I love that brother, man. He is the best. And
now he was past Grand Monarch, so essentially the imperial potentate of the Grotto.
The boss up until last year.
Yeah.
Because it's like a 10-year cycle. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. And, you know, I was single when I joined the Grotto. I wasn't unemployed. I didn't have a kid. So we were on the same path. And, yeah, man, Victor, this is great, brother. And then I got laid off. And the kid, I'm like, brother, I have to back off from this because, you know, I can't. I have a child. I'm laid off. You know,
yeah, life is happening.
Yeah, and seeing Victor, you know, I forget he chartered something like 20 grottos, something crazy. He expanded globally. They're in Latin America now. He chartered grottos in Mexico, El Salvador. So Victor, under his guidance, the grotto really has grown, and it's. I don't know if you know anything about the degree. It's fun. it's goofy and fun, man. But the lesson is, you know, be a good guy always.
Yeah.
And, you know, seeing Victor and the prophets of Azim grow and have respect, because, you know, the grotto was kind of always looked on as like a, you know, second banana, kind of like poor man shrine. And our philosophy was like, I'm a poor man. Yeah. And it was started by these brothers. God, what's the brother's name? He's right on my wall. I have these. Well, I wish I could show it to you. I have these old timey portraits from the grotto on my wall. And so he started. It was the Fairchild Deviltry Club in like upstate New York. And they, you know, when you joined the shrine initially, you had to be like a millionaire at the time. And you had to be like a 32nd degree Scottish Rite, or you had to be an 18th degree York Rite. And they were kind of elitist. And, you know, these are working class dudes from upstate, and they wanted a club for fun. And it started out with them just playing pranks on each other. And then over time, it evolved into the grotto we have now. And my fear is that prophets will start taking it too seriously.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend going to a Supreme Council, though, because it's, you know, the prophets from Tripoped Grotto up in Poughkeepsie, they're amazing, and it's fun, and they bring joy to it. So imagine going to a Masonic function where there's all brothers from around the world who, when they greet you with a smile and a hug and joy, and sometimes, like, you know, squirting the nose with the eye with a flower. Like,
but it's really what all of Masonry should be. Yeah. Sometimes we get caught up, and here's the problem with Masonry, just a general. Dudes and egos. Dudes and egos, that's the killer of Masonry. I mean, and give me something that kills it faster than that, but dudes and egos.
That goes back to my point about, you know, about dates and titles. I refer to my brothers as brothers.
Yep.
Brothers. You know, I could be talking to the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of the State of New York, or entered apprentice. Your brother.
Yep.
That's it. And the higher you go, the more you serve. So you entered apprentice. You think serving us our ribs for dinner is bad? Grandmaster's bad if you're doing it right.
Yeah, exactly right.
If you do it right.
I mean, servant leadership shouldn't be easy. I mean, it should take some effort.
Yes.
Right.
Well, it's, what I found when I was master was, brothers come up to you with ridiculous ideas or even dumb ideas, smart ideas. And your job as the master is to wrangle but support. So
volunteers that have their bags packed at any time looking for a reason to leave.
Yes. So, brother, hey, I want to do this. And in my brain, I'm like, that's a stupid idea. But my job as the leader is go, brother, what can I do to help you achieve this? What do you want to do this? Let's do it. I'm on board. I'm here to help you. Use me as a tool for what you want to do. The onus is upon you, and you have me in the backing of the lodge and your brothers. It's not my job to tell you what to think or to do.
Right.
Yeah. My job to help you achieve that.
Yep. You're the spokesman that year, essentially.
Exactly. And the master should be the lowest person in the lodge.
Exactly.
They're there to serve everybody. Yep. And the problem comes in when the master is lord over people. That's when I've always found it's problematic.
I agree. And I've also found the folks that are chasing the titles are the ones that you absolutely do not want in those positions. Correct. Because, we all have agendas. An agenda, the word, when somebody says they've got an agenda, doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Their agenda could be, I want this to be the best thing ever for everyone, right? But when people are chasing the titles, that should raise a flag.
You know what? I have a good story about that. I was a new Shriner. I was a new noble, newish, maybe a year or two. And I was friends with the Imperial Potentate on Facebook. And I had no idea he was the Imperial Potentate. He didn't say anything on it. He just had like a cartoon of his picture, and I saw the name. I didn't even think about it. And we came to one of our dinners. And before that, he and I had been talking for years. And it's on Facebook. I'm like, hey, brother, if you're ever in New York, you can crash my house. I got a couch. You got it. I'll take you out. We're going to hang out with John Roberts. And he got up at our dinner, our festive one. Well, our Florence Day dinner. And there was Noble Moore here. He asked me, hey, you're in New York, you want to stay on my couch? He didn't know I was a potentate. And, at first the brothers were like, ha, 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 ha. Hey, he's a guy, he's an Imperial Potentate. He's got all the money he needs. He can stay in a nice hotel. And he goes, why don't other brothers do that? He didn't know. He knows I'm a Mason. He knows I'm a noble. And he offered his home to me, a place to sleep. He didn't care that I was Imperial Potentate. You're a brother. And he's like, and, when he said, why don't more brothers do that? Everybody's like, oh, it's not a joke. That's how you treat your brother.
Right.
And to that story, he didn't chase, and he just recently passed, and he was an awesome guy. But it's, the title chasers wreck that. They wreck the being on the level. Because we all in the same place.
So how long ago did this gentleman pass? In the last couple of years?
Past couple of years.
Yeah. I just interviewed his son, Ross. He's been on the podcast.
And he was a great guy. And he was such a nice guy to me, man. And he had a great time in New York.
Yeah. He's and actually, I've heard this story before because I know Imperial Sir Jeff Souter very well. So.
Good. Excellent. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. My kid, she's 7 now, and I'm trying to get back in the swing of things with Azim, and they've run with it, and we've had
Love it.
Kurt and Potentate, and they're doing awesome work. Because when I even joined the Shrine, Mecca was not dying out, but close. We had a lot of money at one time. In fact, I'll tell you a terrible story about a Potentate without any names. We were at a great Potentate, Ted Jacobson. We were at his banquet, at his every year. And there's a past Potentate, and he came up. He's talking about to a bunch of young nobles about, oh man, in my year we used to have steak dinners. We had a great time. We don't do that anymore. We had cigars and whiskey, blah blah. It's fantastic. Now we don't do any of that. And I'm like, yeah, we also used to have $20 million. Right. Or whatever it was. I'm positive that you had a great time. positive that you had a great time, because we don't have that money now. Is that what you're here for? The steak dinners and cigars? Because I don't know, man. That doesn't sound right to me. Right? You're holding that money for the next generation. You're not spending that down. But to their perception in the 70s and 80s, especially in New York, it was dying. So here's this dying club. I still find it distasteful, but I can see why they fought it. And those old timers of the bad times are not that you want to see them go away, but they're going away. And there's, at least in New York City, there's a whole new wave of young men getting involved.
So that's my next question. So we talk about in the podcast, we always ask this question: why aren't more men joining? Your response would be maybe what?
Well, it's complex, man. It's we used to have churches and temples and the moose, the elks. After World War II, you have this whole generation of men that have joined. They want to find a place where they can meet and talk about their experiences. The boomers come along. I'm not a boomer basher, right? I try not to be. I'm Gen X, and here's this whole generation of the silent generation, the guys who fought in World War II, who saw unimaginable horrors, and they come back and they want to make sure that their kids don't have that. They lived through the Depression. They saw death, destruction, chaos, the Depression, and they have some money. They moved to the suburbs. My kids are never going to go through that. Then you have these screw you, Dad, I'm going to be a hippie. Well, you had the luxury to be a hippie and go do that because you lived in the suburbs that I made sure that you don't have to, right? Right. So it's like the reaction of their parents. So that generation, they kind of poo-pooed organized religion. And, I'm making vast generalizations because obviously not everybody.
Sure.
But, the civic organizations just kind of dwindled away, When I was a kid, I'm 52. My grandfather was born in 1908. He was a moose, and they were devout moose, right? That go all the time. And bowling leagues. And, we don't have that connection anymore. We don't have the social. We don't have whether you like church or not, you would still go there for the potlucks and the community.
For the fellowship.
Correct. And, I think the ideals behind boomerism, totally generalizing, because clearly not everybody's like that, but it's more about individualism than group or groupthink. And, that in itself is a group, but they kind of look down on those organizations. I think it trickled down. How are you going to know about Freemasonry if your dad's not one or your uncle's not one? And kind of that generation really dropped the ball on it. And we have a few boomers in our lodge still.
Sure.
But they tend to be I use the term with endearment, like weirdo New Yorkers, right? They're like artists and, creative types who are I would join this weird thing. As a matter of fact, Philippe Petit, the guy who walked between the Twin Towers.
Okay.
The tightrope walker.
Yeah.
Mariner.
Oh, really?
He hasn't been there. I think there's some beef a long time ago, but he's a Mariner. So, people like that. Yeah. And that's why I think it died down. I mean, there's a million reasons, but I think that's, overall civic organizations have been kind of going away. And now a lot of brothers look at current technology and being online as a negative thing, but we've been using it as not recruitment, but as a way to open men's eyes.
Exactly. Why aren't we embracing the technology to spread the message? A podcast, a Facebook post, an Instagram, a Snapchat, whatever the hell that's out there. Why aren't we embracing technology to let the world know our message?
Because we used to not do it that way.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Not how we did it. That's not how we did it.
Yeah, it was very rhetorical, but because we never had to do it before. Yeah, but we had, 500,000 Shriners. And as we were losing memberships, we weren't adjusting dues, and now we got problems.
We'll get to dues with Mariners too. our dues are like $500 a year. Because and that's not for the money. It's if you value something, $500 stings, but it's not ridiculous.
Right? It's enough that says I'm going to a damn meeting to get my money's worth.
Like if you work at wherever, you could save up if it means that much to you, you could save up $500.
People spend $500 a year on coffee, or the $3 slice of cheese pizza on every corner in Manhattan.
Exactly. So I mean, that's kind of the philosophy behind it. It's not to take your money; it's a thing of value.
It needs to be, because if it's $50 and $100, it's like, it's okay one way or the other. Yeah, no, I'm with you. So many lodges across the United States, their dues are too low. And there's a lot of reasons that the dues need to go up. One, sometimes they just need to maintain buildings and do different things. But the others, to get a little skin in the game.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point of it.
Yeah.
Every now and then we need to raise more. Like, no, this stings a little bit. Like cutting that check, like, crap. But it's my lodge. I go there. And the young men who've been coming into our lodge we have a huge wave of men in their 30s, early 30s.
Crazy.
Who are like technology guys or business dudes. And the thing that I think is bringing them to our lodge is because we make it difficult for them. It's something to achieve.
If you would just rubber stamp them, they're in and out. There's no value.
And whenever I'm talking to young guys, and they'll say, "Hey, tell me about this. What does it mean to me?" Well, you are 28 years old. There's never been a point in your life where you've been off the grid ever. You've always been on the grid your whole life. When you go to lodge, there's no phones. You're not in the world. You are here. You could go back 200 years and walk into Benjamin Franklin's lodge. There'd be differences. You'd like, I get it. You could go 200 years into the future. It's like a silver thread. You could go into that lodge 200 years from now. There'd be a little difference, but got it. Where in your life, young man, do you have that? Give me one example of where you have that in your existence. When have you ever been off the grid? And none of them, they go, I've never thought of that.
Nor have I. That's a interesting way to put that.
Brother Benjamin Franklin did this. Brother Benjamin Franklin, great example. Teddy Roosevelt, his lodge still very much in existence. Manteoc something. They're out in Oyster Bay, Long Island. Still in existence. They're down the road from his house, Sagamore Hill. And he's buried down. And his grave is humble. It's not just a tombstone on the middle of the road. And I believe he was governor at the time, and his gardener was the master of the lodge. And he goes, "Hey, I'd love to join the lodge." "All right, governor, but just know when you're coming into this lodge, you're not the governor. You're Brother Roosevelt. You're entered apprentice Roosevelt." All right. And Teddy Roosevelt joined that lodge. And he was a member of that lodge till the day he died. And he was Brother Roosevelt. Not mayor, not governor, not president. You were brother.
Love it.
And, when you tell young men that, who's telling them this? Where are they hearing this? George Washington's Bible is owned by St. John's Lodge No. 1. The Bible he swore his oath of office on. And they keep it down at Federal Hall, and they use it for new incoming worshipful masters. If you're a Grand Lodge in America and you want to use that, they'll fly it there. And it's Brother John Roberts' job in the lodge to do this. And that Bible, owned by St. John's, and nobody ever talks about it, is because Masonic Bibles are non-denominational, right?
Right.
So the President of the United States, who chose not to be King Washington, President Washington, they didn't have a Bible, so they got one down the street. They got the Masonic Bible because it's non-denominational.
Right.
It's not a Protestant Bible. It's not a Catholic Bible. It's Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So they intentionally took the oath of office on a Masonic Bible because we are not beholden to any single religion. That was on purpose. Where do you hear that?
Yeah.
You know? And when you tell these young men that, and you take them down to Federal Hall, and you see the musty old St. John's Bible sitting there, that young man, that's the first time they're connected to history or feel part of history. Like if you become a Mason, you know, the idea of like humbling power and you giving up your power is emboldens these young men. You know, George Washington was a guy. You know, we look at George Washington as like a big gold statue.
Yeah, as a god.
He's a brother. He was a fallible man who made right choices and moral choices and set forth a good example. For the most part, you know, nobody's perfect.
Sure.
Yeah, we had slaves.
Yeah.
But that idea, I think, is attractive to young men. And they're not receiving it anywhere else. Nowhere.
Yeah.
And Mariners Lodge, these brothers are showing up.
I love it. Up. All right. Before we wrap up, I want to give you the most important question of the podcast, my friend.
Lay it on me, brother.
So the most important question of the podcast, we're going to throw 4 things up on the screen.
Okay.
And of these 4 things, one must go forever. It was never, ever invented. So on the screen, you have tacos, any kind, beef, chicken, steak, whatever you want. Pizza, New York, Chicago, any toppings, whatever you want. Chicken wings, dry rub, sauce, whatever you want, and a burger any way you want it. One of these has to go forever. It was never, ever invented in the history of the world. Which one is it and why, my friend?
All right. I'm going to choose one. I have my answer already, and I'm choosing that out of malice.
Out of malice. All right.
To stick it in the brothers from my state, some brothers from Western New York. First of all, I'm from New York City. Clearly, peace can't go. Love tacos, love hamburgers. It's the wings. And I just like the brothers out in Buffalo, Di and those guys. Like, hey, you know, brothers, Western New York, what you can do with your wings, brothers? Take them.
Wings go the most, my friend. And there was a time I was offended. They're so delicious, but they're little. There's a lot of work going on. I have to agree with you. So
I love them, and the only reason I say that is just hey, brother Di and Comiskey, if you're watching this, stuff your wings, Miles.
I love it. I love it. Hey, brother, I can't wait to get you back on the podcast sometime. So thanks for joining the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast. Cheers.
Cheers, brother. Anytime.
Cheers.